Welcome to the Resource Podcast, where we take a slightly sassy, fully feminist approach to creating healthy relationships and a joyful life. I'm your host, Tatiana Thompson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in both Arizona and Minnesota. I specialize in applying clinically proven techniques like EMDR, parts work, and neural reprogramming to help you see real, lasting change in your everyday life. Just remember, I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. This show is for informational purposes only, and it's not a replacement for seeking personal mental health or medical advice. So join me now as we explore simple strategies for breaking toxic relationship patterns and applying simple mental health tools to your daily life. Learn how to take the small steps today that will guide you to your best life tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Resourced Podcast, the show that invites you to question everything you thought you knew about relationships and mental health so you can finally break through your stuck points and create the life you've always wanted. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women become emotionally and financially independent so they can choose a relationship instead of needing one. And I'm back today to continue our discussion on the incredible power of feeling your emotions. I know, like I said last time, it doesn't sound that exciting, but oh my God, it's amazing. So if you didn't hear last week's episode, I would definitely encourage you to pause and go check it out. It'll give you all the background you need to understand why today's episode is so important, because it is. The tool I'm going to give you is going to feel overly simplistic, and I want you to have the framework as to why it's worth trying. I genuinely cannot think of a more important core skill for your overall well-being as a human being. And I get it still doesn't sound sexy, but it is, because let's look at it this way. This is your gateway to being able to return to your calm center in any storm. Also think about it as in, who are the people in your life that you feel the safest around? Because I would bet really good money that they're the people who can regulate their emotions and not end up taking their emotions out on the people around them. You feel safe around them because they know how to manage this, and they're really grounded. And you know, who doesn't want to be around somebody who's grounded and calm? It feels amazing. So this really is a superpower. So without further ado, I promise today to teach you how to metabolize your emotions. So let's get started. I'm going to give you a 4-step framework that you can use at any time in any place to fully digest and release your emotions, or like I like to call it, to metabolize your emotions. That said, you may find it easiest to do this when you have some quiet downtime. It does take a lot of emotional focus and mental focus. And, like we talked about last week, you might want some privacy because sometimes our emotions can get messy and we don't necessarily need to worry about other people witnessing what we're going through. I also can find it really helpful to use a journal for the exercise, but just understand it's not absolutely necessary, but it is a great way to keep you focused when your mind kind of wants to wander off in other directions. Because remember, like I said, your mind is going to want to avoid this exercise. That's part of my disclaimer here. You may feel the urge to underestimate the exercise, and you may even avoid it altogether. Your brain will say stuff like, oh, it's too simple, it doesn't really matter, it's not that big of a deal. But the urge to skip it is usually another one of those parts that's afraid to feel big emotions. This is so simple. Just try it. There's no risk. So I invite you to give it a try regardless of what blocks come up, and just see what happens. If you do feel like approaching your emotions is too overwhelming, though, please understand, if you genuinely sense that, work with a professional. Go see a therapist if you don't already have one, and start talking to them about your fear of sitting with your emotions, and they can help you start taking those steps to get to the ability to do this. Okay, so step number 1, remember, 4-step framework. The first step is to name the vulnerable emotions that you're feeling. By vulnerable, I mean things that are underneath the defenses, like feeling aggressive or feeling angry. So these are the tender emotions. And if you're not sure what you're feeling, that's totally okay. A lot of times we'll kind of check in and go, I don't know what I'm feeling. And by the way, you can totally go online and get like an emotions wheel. That said, I'm going to give you a list of what I consider to be the most distilled down emotions that there are. The emotions wheel will have a lot of layered emotions, but I want you to get down to the core stuff. So I'm going to give you this list. If you can write it down, I'll go ahead and put it in the show notes as well. Look at this list and you can just pick the ones that would apply logically. Like if someone else was in this position, would they feel this way? What would they feel? You can also notice as you're reading them if they just possibly resonate with you. And if they do, write them down in your journal and explore them. So here are the list of vulnerable emotions: sadness or grief, feeling really scared or frightened, hurt, as in emotionally hurt, you hurt my feelings. Here's a set that's kind of a group: helpless, hopeless, or powerless. They're all very similar, small nuance that makes them a little bit different. The next is feeling shame or ashamed. That means I feel like I am somebody bad. Another similar emotion is guilty. I did something bad. Embarrassed, lonely, and confused. Now, you can also add angry to this list, but real important point, you have to identify at least one other emotion from this list if you select anger as one of your emotions, because anger, in most cases, is a defensive emotion to help you not have to feel the scary, more vulnerable ones underneath. Okay. So here's a quick note too. If you come up with any other emotions that aren't on this list, I want you to try to distill them down to words that are on this list, because oftentimes those other words are kind of a combination of emotions, not the emotions themselves. So I want you to break them down into their component parts from that list. So here's an example. I have a lot of clients and myself will say, I'm feeling so frustrated. Well, frustration is kind of an assessment of a couple different emotions. It's usually helpless and angry at the same time. I'm feeling so helpless that it's moving me to a state of anger. Another combo one is depression. I'm feeling depressed. That usually means I'm feeling some combination of like helpless or hopeless combined with sad. Anxious is also a combination. A lot of times that lands just under like scared combined with helpless, but I do want you to understand that if you're generally feeling like anxious, it can be a big range of emotions. And I like to think of anxiety as like a warning system that your pot is starting to boil over. It pretty much just means that you have a bunch of unprocessed emotions that are getting backed up. So it's time to get to this exercise. So if you can, if you're feeling anxious, just kind of dig in and go, am I feeling all these emotions? Which ones am I feeling? Which one is strongest right now? And maybe put that at the top of the list. All right, so that's step number one. That is, name the vulnerable emotions you're feeling. Ideally, have a journal, write them down, and add anything to it. You can feel all of them. You can feel a couple of them. But remember, if you list anger, you've got to list another one of the emotions. All right, step number two is to name the body sensations that you're feeling. This can also be a trick to finding the actual emotions you're feeling. Sometimes we don't know the emotions, but all of a sudden when we tap into the body sensation, like the emotion suddenly becomes available to us. It's like we can actually identify it. So a nice way to find the body sensations that you're getting right now, because a lot of us are intellectualizers. We like to stay like necking up. We're all in our head. We forget to even notice what's happening in our body. Is I want you to imagine a beam of light that's like scanning from the top of your head all the way down to your toes, and just notice all the sensations that are happening every spot that beam is hitting. So think about the issue, the event, or the emotion that you're feeling, and run that beam down your body and just pick up, where do you sense tension, numbness, heaviness, pain, jitters, tightness? Pick that up, write it down. Okay, my stomach feels really tight. What does it feel like? So like I just said, it feels tight. Maybe sometimes it feels like there are butterflies. Maybe it feels heavy. Maybe it feels like there's pressure. Does it have a color? Does it have a temperature? Does it have a consistency? Is it like sludgy? Is it hard, like a knot? Does it feel like my stomach's dropping out? Is my back clamping down? So any details you can give to it, give to it. Don't get overly caught up in it. Like if you can't find those things, if it doesn't have a temperature or color or consistency, that's okay. Move on. That's fine. But if you can give it those things, it can be really helpful. So write them in your journal if you can. So that was step number two. Name the body sensations you're feeling. If you love what you're hearing and you're ready to take your life to the next level, consider working with me one-on-one. I can see clients located in Arizona, Minnesota, and Ohio. Imagine where you could be 1 year from now if you start your healing journey today. Step number 3 is probably the trickiest and the one that people really do want to skip over the most, and it is to validate the emotions and sensations you're feeling and give them permission to feel to be in your body. So, got to go on a side quest here, guys. So we got to explain the importance of validating your emotions. There are a lot of layers to this, so buckle up. Here's the biggest takeaway from today. All your emotions are always valid. Emotions are always valid. Whether someone else can understand them or not does not matter. They are valid, and we have to spend time validating them. The distinction is your behaviors are not. Emotions are always valid. Behaviors are not. Remember how we explained in the last episode that emotions and behaviors are different? This is one of the reasons it's so important to understand that they're different. It's completely valid that I feel hurt when my partner is inconsiderate. But it's not okay for me to punish him in some way. So my job is to go feel the hurt, metabolize that out, so then I can find my voice and express my need to him so that I don't lash out in my hurt. Hope that makes sense. Now, the biggest reason we have to validate our emotions is when we do that, we're saying that we accept ourselves even when we feel this big, ugly thing. So there's this fantastic talk by Dr. Becky Kennedy that I reference a lot for my clients, and I'll try to link it in the notes. She talks about how all we really want when we're upset is for someone to sit down with us and just be with us and to communicate that they still like us even when we feel this way, that we won't lose them for having this big emotion. And that goes back to all of our fears around feeling our emotions that we discussed in the last episode. We're afraid to even acknowledge them because we're afraid of being abandoned. Because as children, we were at times. Again, not to blame our parents. They didn't know all the time and they couldn't always be perfect, right? But we're afraid to acknowledge them. And that's what we're doing to ourselves every time we turn away from our feelings. We are doing what happened to us before. We are abandoning the part of us that feels that way. Let that sink in. We are abandoning ourselves. So our job now is to turn towards the part of ourself that feels that way and to stay present and loving. Think about it like before we're running away from those ghosts of emotions. Stop running, turn around, and face the emotion and face the little version of you that is feeling that emotion and stop abandoning them. We need to communicate to this part and to this emotion that we won't ever be abandoned for having feelings again, that we still love ourselves even when we have big emotions. This is so enormous. Okay, here's the last reason why I want you to validate your emotions. Imagine a couple is fighting and one of them is feeling really hurt and they're like not being heard, they're being invalidated, and they keep trying to tell the person, but this is how you hurt me, this is how you hurt me. And the other person continues to just be like, oh my God, you're being ridiculous. What do you think the hurt person is going to do there? Like, are they going to get quieter or are they going to get louder? Because in my experience, they're going to get louder. They're going to be like, okay, you obviously haven't heard me. So I'm going to have to explain it a different way or a louder way or a more aggressive way. But imagine if their partner said to them, oh my God, of course you're hurt. I can totally understand that and I'm here with you. Notice I didn't say that this person has to take blame, but they can validate the feeling. Now, what do you think the hurt person is going to do in this situation? Are they going to get louder and puff up? I've never seen that happen. I don't think you have either. They're probably going to sigh and lean back and just finally feel relieved that they were heard. So that's what we need to do for ourselves. When we validate and sit with emotions, they actually get smaller. They don't get bigger. They get bigger when we don't listen. Just like when we're not listened to, we get louder and bigger. So do our emotions. So I promise you, the opposite is the medicine here. We don't avoid them because they're going to get louder. When we turn towards them and we face what fears we fear, it gets quieter and it gets calmer and it gets more manageable to actually process. All right. So here are some tips for how to validate those emotions. It's as simple as just saying, of course I feel sad right now. Of course, I feel helpless right now. I'm allowed to feel sad. I'm allowed to feel helpless. I'm allowed to feel this heaviness in my chest. Sadness, heaviness, you can be here in my body right now. Just give them permission to be with you. And as you're doing that, I like to think of telling the emotions and sensations like almost like inviting them to like hit me, like a wave, like I'm leaning into. Kind of think about like if you've ever been in an ocean, like with the big waves going. When you approach the wave break where the wave's going to hit, you got to lean into it, because if you don't brace yourself and lean into it, you will get knocked over by the wave, and you kind of will by the emotions. You need to brace yourself and be ready to lean into it. And then if you lean into it and you get past that wave, you'll be in smooth water again. That's the same thing with emotions. That's very, very important that you let it wash over you. Let yourself surrender to the experience is another way to say it, to the sensations, to the discomfort. It will feel like waves. And at first you might not feel anything, or you might feel just like a tsunami hit you, but it will pass. Remember how we talked about in the last episode? An emotion being felt only takes about 90 seconds to process. So lean into it. You will come out the other end. But remember, this is a really important time to remind yourself, you do not tell yourself stories when you're feeling emotions. This is where we don't say things like, I'll never get what I want, or things will always be this way, or I'm unlovable. No, that's future oriented. It isn't true. What is true in this moment is I am hurt and I'm sad and I'm scared. That is true. I can lean into that, and I can lean into the body sensations and let them wave past me. Okay. That's your job on that. That is technically the full exercise. Now, step 4 is that I want you to rinse and repeat. Once the initial big emotion subsides a bit, I want you to return to step 1 and take note of which emotion you're feeling the most intensely now. Because maybe at the beginning it was a lot of hurt. Maybe it was anger. Maybe you needed to get some of that anger out first so you could go to the deeper emotions. Feel that out. That's great. Then come back and go, okay, now I have access to that hurt. Oh, this hurts and my stomach is dropping out, or whatever. My shoulders are tight. Okay. Of course I feel hurt. Of course I'm allowed to feel hurt. Shoulders, you can be tight. All right, hit me. Bring it on. Let this wash over me. I can tolerate this. I can do this. Lean into it. That's all you got to do. Validate it. Give it space to wash over you. And if that is enough, great. But if you feel like it, rinse and repeat again. Do it as much as you need to do it. That's totally cool. And if you can only do one round, that's also fine. It's still better because, again, you're emptying your pot. You're letting that simmer happen in a controlled way. All right, I hope that makes sense. Let me do a quick summary of all of these steps again. We start with naming the vulnerable emotions you're feeling. We've got sad, scared, hurt, helpless, hopeless, or powerless, ashamed, guilty, embarrassed, lonely, confused, and angry. And remember, you got to select another one if you pick angry. Next, we're going to name the body sensations that you're feeling. Write those down in your journal if you can. Finally, we're going to validate those emotions and sensations and give them permission to wash over you and your body, to be with you, to hit you. And then you're going to rinse and repeat as you need. I encourage you to practice this exercise proactively every single day. So this is something you can do reactively, like I'm having a big emotion, or I had one today. I had to box it up because I was in public and I need to go feel it later. So I go have it reactively. But I also want you to practice it proactively. Did I have any emotions today that need processing? P.S. You can use this for joy as well. You can use it for all the positive emotions and let yourself really get all the goodness out of it. But practice it at minimum once a day. Set aside 5 minutes. And this will be so helpful because what it'll do is it'll process any new emotions, preventing backlogs, and it will also clean out any old emotions that were there. I want you to think of this as a form of emotional housekeeping. It is so powerful. And remember, it's going to feel too simplistic that you're not going to want to try it, but I dare you. I dare you to try it. So I really do hope you create a small amount of time every day to do the exercise and that you find this framework very helpful and user-friendly. Thank you so much for listening today on the Resource Podcast. And remember, you deserve to have an exquisite life. So I want you to stop chasing and I want you to start choosing. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Resourced Podcast. My hope is that you learned at least one practical tool you can apply to your life today to move in the direction of your dreams. If you found this content helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and consider subscribing to my email list, which is linked in the show notes. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What step will you take today?